The cake knife was still in my mother's hand when she said it, loud enough for the waiter to freeze beside the table. "You are a Czech, not a daughter," she said, and my father slid a cream-colored folder beside my plate like he was serving dessert. Inside was a notarized amendment removing me from the Whitaker family trust, and my sister leaned close enough for me to smell her wine and whispered, "Finally." I didn't cry. I turned my head toward the back of the restaurant, where a woman at the third table stood up with trembling hands and held out my original birth certificate. "My name is Kendall Rose Whitaker. I'm 21 years old." That was the night I learned my parents hadn't just lied about who I was. They had built my entire life on paperwork they never thought I would understand. For most people, a 21st birthday is embarrassing photos, too much frosting, and a toast about becoming an adult. Mine happened at Briarstone, an expensive steakhouse in downtown Dayton, with my adoptive parents, Marianne and Gerald Whitaker, my older sister Paige, and a folder full of legal documents I had never asked to see. Gerald had arranged the dinner. That should have warned me. My father did not arrange sentimental things. He arranged refinancing appointments, insurance binders, tax filings, and beneficiary forms. Even family events in our house felt like administrative meetings with candles. Marianne had ordered the cake herself. White frosting. Gold writing. "Happy 21st, Kendall." Then she cut through my name. I remember staring at the folder before I touched it. It had Gerald's blocky handwriting on the tab, KRW. Estate notice. Not birthday. Not important. Estate notice. Inside was a copy of the Second Amendment to the Gerald and Marianne Whitaker Revocable Living Trust, dated that morning. My name had been crossed out in one paragraph and replaced with pages. The clause beneath it said I was being intentionally omitted as a beneficiary because I was not a biological or legally dependent child of the grantors. BR legally dependent on my birthday. I looked at Gerald. He had his napkin folded in his lap and his reading glasses low on his nose, like he expected me to ask a practical question. "Bor, you're an adult now," he said. "It's cleaner this way." Bor cleaner. That word did something to me. It pushed the shock down and made room for something colder. Because I knew I was adopted. They had told me when I was 12, during an argument over why I didn't look like anyone in the family. Marianne had said it like a punishment. Gerald had said the paperwork was sealed, and that being grateful would make my life easier. So, I became grateful. I didn't ask why there were no baby pictures before age 3. I didn't ask why Marianne flinched whenever I mentioned medical history forms. I didn't ask why every school document listed my birth city as unknown, when my amended birth certificate clearly said Dayton, Ohio. But 3 months before that dinner, an envelope had arrived at my apartment from a probate attorney named Samuel Keene. It was addressed to Kendall Rose Alvarez, a name I had never used in my life. I almost threw it away. Inside was one sentence that changed everything. "Our office is attempting to locate the beneficiary formerly known as Kendall Rose Alvarez, regarding unclaimed funds connected to the estate of Rafael Calder." Beer formerly known as unclaimed funds. Estate. I called the number from my car because my hands were shaking too hard to sit still. Mr. Keene wouldn't tell me much over the phone, but he asked for my date of birth, my adoptive parents' names, and whether I had ever received annual accountings for a custodial account. I didn't even know what an annual accounting was. 2 weeks later, after I sent him a copy of my driver's license and my amended birth certificate, he gave me one name, Elena Marisol Calder. My birth mother. I found her through a DNA match and one careful message. She answered in 20 minutes. By the time my birthday dinner came, I had already met her once in a library study room with glass walls and security cameras. She cried when she saw me, but not in the dramatic way I expected. She covered her mouth like she was afraid sound would scare me away. She told me she had not abandoned me. She told me she had signed a temporary guardianship after a car accident left her hospitalized and broke, and that Gerald Whitaker, her cousin by marriage, had promised it would help me qualify for medical coverage until she recovered. Then she said the sentence I kept hearing while Marianne sliced my cake. They told the court I couldn't be found. That night at Briarstone, Elena was 3 tables away because I had asked her to be. I was terrified of meeting both worlds at once, but I needed one person in that room who knew my original name. When Marianne called me a Czech, Elena stood up. Gerald saw her before I said anything. His face changed so fast it was almost proof by itself. Elena walked to our table and placed the document beside his trust amendment. It was older, creased at the fold, with a raised county seal. Her original birth certificate, she said, and I have the guardianship order you never terminated properly. The restaurant went silent around us. Gerald reached for the paper. I put my hand over it first. And for the first time in my life, my father looked afraid of me. Gerald's fingers stopped an inch from mine. For 21 years, that man had trained me to move out of his way. At the kitchen counter. In the hallway. In conversations. In the family photos where Paige stood between them, and I stood on the end like someone added later. But that night, my hand stayed flat on the birth certificate. No, I said. It was one word, but Marianne reacted like I'd slapped her. Excuse me? BR? I said no. Hard. Up close, I could see she was shaking, but she didn't step back. She looked nothing like Marianne. Dark hair pulled into a clip. Brown eyes exactly like mine. A small scar through her left eyebrow that I somehow knew I'd keep noticing forever. Gerald lowered his voice. Kendall, do not make a scene. I almost laughed. You brought disinheritance papers to my birthday dinner. BR Paige rolled her eyes. Oh my God, you're so dramatic. Elena turned toward her. Who are you? Bar my real daughter, Marianne snapped. The sentence hit the table like broken glass. For 1 second, Paige looked pleased. Then she looked at me, waiting for the collapse. She'd seen it before. The shutdown. The apology. The version of me that cleaned up after being wounded because mess made Marianne angrier. But I wasn't 12 anymore. I picked up Gerald's folder and opened it again. This says I'm not a legally dependent child. You're 21, Gerald said. It says not biological or legally dependent, like you're establishing I never had a claim. That is standard legal language. Elena's voice cut in. It's defensive language. Gerald looked at her then, and the mask slipped. You have no standing here. I had standing when you took my daughter. Marianne made a sharp sound. You gave her away. No, Elena said. I gave you temporary guardianship for 90 days. My stomach turned. 90 days. I had imagined adoption as a sad but finished story. A desperate mother. A better home. Signatures. A judge. A new name. Not 90 days. Gerald leaned back and smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. If you had a valid claim, Elena, you would have filed it 18 years ago. I was 22, she said. I was recovering from a spinal injury. You told me she was in foster care after Marianne said I was unstable. Then you moved. Marianne's face hardened. We protected that child from chaos. You changed her name. We gave her stability. You cashed her checks. Silence. Not restaurant silence. Legal silence. The kind where even Paige stopped breathing through her mouth. I looked at Elena. What checks? Gerald's hand curled around his water glass. This is not the place. What checks? I repeated. Elena pulled a second envelope from her purse. Your grandfather. Raphael Calder. My father. He died when you were 4. His will left money to his only grandchild. To me? She nodded. It was supposed to be held in a custodial account until you turned 18. My eyes moved to Gerald. He didn't deny it. That was the worst part. He didn't even pretend confusion. He just adjusted his glasses and said, Those funds were used for your benefit. For my benefit. I remembered thrift store winter coats while Paige got boutique dresses. I remembered being told braces were cosmetic until the school nurse called. I remembered scholarships, part-time jobs, and Marianne charging me rent the summer after high school because adults contribute. How much? I asked. No one answered. Elena did. Originally? $240,000. With interest and distributions, Samuel estimates over 400. The room tilted. Paige whispered, "What?" That was the first honest thing she'd said all night. Marianne grabbed Gerald's sleeve. "Don't." But the damage had already shown its face. Gerald looked at me like a business problem. Not a daughter. Not even an enemy. A liability. "Kendall," he said carefully, "you need to understand that raising a child costs money." I stared at him. "Then why did you tell me I was a check?" Marianne went pale. Because she had said it in anger, but truth has a sound. Everyone at the table had heard it. Elena placed one more paper down. Got Burr. "This is the guardianship order. This is the missing person affidavit Gerald filed. And this," her voice broke, but she forced it steady. "This is the letter I sent him begging to see you. Returned as undeliverable after he changed addresses." I touched the envelope. My name was on it. Kendall Rose Alvarez. Written by a mother I had been told didn't want me. Gerald stood. "We're leaving." "No," I said again. This time, my voice didn't shake at all. I took out my phone and called the number I had saved 3 months earlier. When Samuel Keene answered, I put him on speaker. "Mr. Keene," I said, looking straight at Gerald. "I'm ready to file." Samuel Keene did not sound surprised. "Are you safe?" he asked. That question did more to shake me than the folder had. I looked at Gerald standing over the table, Marianne gripping his sleeve, Paige staring at the birth certificate like it had personally insulted her. "Yes," I said, "we're in public." "Good. Do not hand over any original documents. Do not leave with the Whitakers. If Mr. Whitaker attempts to take anything, call the police." Gerald's jaw tightened. "This is absurd." Samuel's voice stayed calm through the speaker. "Mr. Whitaker, this is Samuel Keene. I represent interests connected to the Calder estate. I'd advise you not to speak further without counsel." Marianne laughed once, brittle and ugly. "Interests? She's ours." Elena flinched. I didn't. "I'm not property," I said. The waiter appeared at the edge of the disaster holding our untouched entrees, saw everyone's faces, and backed away like he'd walked into a hostage negotiation. Gerald reached into his jacket. For one wild second I thought he was going for my papers anyway, but he pulled out his wallet and threw $300 bills onto the table. "Paige, Marianne, now." Paige stood automatically, then hesitated. Her eye, before she left, she leaned close to me, perfume sharp and familiar. "You think she wants you?" she whispered, nodding toward Elena. "She wants the money too." Elena's face crumpled, and there it was, Marianne's favorite weapon. If she couldn't keep you, she'd make love look suspicious. For once, I didn't pick it up. "Goodbye, Marianne." "Not Mom." Her eyes widened just enough to show she noticed. Then the Whitakers walked out of Briarstone without the cake, without the folder, and without me. The moment the door closed behind them, my knees stopped pretending. Elena caught my elbow before I fell back into the chair. "Kendall?" I wanted to tell her not to touch me. I wanted to hug her. I wanted to be 5 years old and furious that nobody had come sooner. Instead, I said, "I need copies of everything." Samuel was still on speaker. "I'll send a courier to pick up scans tonight. Kendall, listen carefully. Tomorrow morning we file a petition for an accounting and preservation order. If funds were misappropriated, we can pursue civil recovery. Depending on the documents, there may be criminal exposure." Criminal. The word should have felt satisfying. It felt like stepping onto ice. "What about the adoption?" I asked. A pause. "The record you sent me showed an adoption finalized when you were 4, Samuel said. "But if the court relied on false notice or fraudulent affidavits, there may be grounds to challenge parts of the file. It won't erase your life, but it may expose how it was built. Elena sat across from me slowly. I went to the courthouse for months. They told me there was no case under Alvarez. I didn't know they'd changed her name. My chest hurt. Why did you stop looking? The question came out sharper than I meant. Elena accepted it like she deserved the blade. I didn't, she said. Not really. I looked badly. Poorly. With no lawyer and no money, and a back brace. Then Gerald sent me a letter from an attorney, saying, if I contacted your school, they'd seek a restraining order because I'd abandoned you. I thought, she covered her mouth. I thought if I fought and lost, they'd tell you I was dangerous. I stared at the returned letter with my old name. My first name. My almost life. What was I like? I asked. Elena blinked. What? When I was little. Her tears finally spilled. You hated peas. You slept with one sock on and one sock off. You called every dog Milo because our neighbor had a beagle. You had this laugh, she pressed her hand to her chest. Like hiccups. A memory flashed so fast I almost missed it. A yellow kitchen. A woman singing in Spanish. A dog barking outside. I gripped the table. Elena saw. You remember? I don't know. My body did. That night, I did not go back to my apartment alone. Elena drove me to Samuel Keene's office, where a paralegal scanned every document while I sat under fluorescent lights eating birthday cake from a takeout box because the waiter had packed it without asking. At 11:47 p.m., Samuel opened a thin file and slid a photocopy across the conference table. This is why Gerald moved so fast tonight, he said. It was a bank statement. Custodial account for Kendall R. Alvarez. Closed. 11 days before my 18th birthday. Final withdrawal, $312,884.19. Authorized by Gerald Whitaker. Memo line, family reimbursement. My fork slipped from my hand. Elena whispered, "Oh my God." Samuel turned the page. The transfer had gone into Whitaker Properties LLC, Gerald's company. And 3 months later, Whitaker Properties bought a lake house. I knew that house. Paige had posted it online every summer with the caption, "Family Legacy." I looked at the statement until the numbers blurred. Then I pushed the cake away. File everything, I said. Samuel nodded. First thing in the morning. But morning came faster than we expected. Because at 6:12 a.m., my phone exploded with messages. Paige had posted a photo of me at dinner, sitting beside Elena, with the caption, my adopted sister found her birth mom and is trying to steal our parents' retirement. And beneath it, Marianne had commented, after all we sacrificed for her. This is what greed looks like. By 7 a.m., I had been called ungrateful by 2 aunts I'd met twice, a gold digger by Paige's sorority friends, and proof adoption is risky by a man whose profile picture was a truck. I sat on the floor of Elena's guest room in borrowed sweatpants, scrolling until my thumb went numb. Every comment felt like Marianne's voice wearing a different face. Elena knocked softly. Don't read them, I know. I kept reading. Paige had posted a carousel now. Childhood photos. Me at 8, missing teeth, standing beside Marianne in a Christmas dress that had been hemmed badly because it was Paige's old one. Me, at 13, holding a science fair ribbon. Me at graduation, Gerald's hand on my shoulder like evidence. The caption said, some people will rewrite history for money. I stared at that last line until something inside me clicked. Okay, I said. Elena, standing in the doorway, looked worried. Okay what? I'm done letting them tell it first. At 8:03 a.m., Samuel Keene filed an emergency petition in probate court requesting a full accounting of the Calder custodial funds, a freeze on assets traceable to the account, and preservation of all Whitaker financial records. At 8:19, He sent Gerald notice by email and certified courier. At 8:31, Gerald called me. I put him on speaker because Samuel had told me to document everything. His voice was low and controlled. You need to take down whatever lies you're planning to post. BR, good morning to you too. Bar, this is not a game, Kendall. Bar, no. It's a bank statement. For a pause. Then, you have no idea what that money paid for. BR, did it pay for Paige's Lake House weekend? When he spoke again, the polish was gone. You were sick when we got you. Do you remember that? Of course you don't. Ear infections, doctors, screaming all night. Elena couldn't manage basic life, let alone a child. We stepped in. BR for 90 days. BR saved you. BR, you stole from me. BR, we were owed reimbursement. BR for what? The used clothes? The rent you charged me at 18? The college application fees I paid myself? Beer, his voice sharpened. You lived under my roof. Bar, and you lived in my inheritance. Bar that landed. Gerald exhaled through his nose. Listen carefully. If you keep going, I will release every record. Therapy notes, school incidents, that shoplifting accusation from sophomore year. Beer, I almost smiled. You mean when Paige put earrings in my backpack? Elena's eyes widened. Gerald said nothing. I have wondered my whole life why you believed her so fast, I said. Now I know. You needed me ashamed. You are making a mistake. No, Gerald. I'm correcting one. I hung up with my heart punching my ribs. Samuel called 10 minutes later. He threatened you? I recorded it. Send it. Then I did something that terrified me more than court. I posted, not a rant. Not tears. Just documents. A photo of my original birth certificate with private details covered. The temporary guardianship order. The returned letter from Elena. The custodial account statement showing the withdrawal. And one paragraph for last night, at my 21st birthday dinner, Gerald and Marianne Whitaker removed me from their trust and told me I was a check, not a daughter. This morning they accused me of greed. I am asking a court for an accounting of funds left to me by my maternal grandfather. Please do not harass anyone. Please let the records speak. For 3 minutes, nothing happened. Then, everything did. The first message came from my high school biology teacher. Kendall, I remember you asking why you didn't have family medical history. I'm so sorry. Then, a former neighbor. I always wondered why your mom sent back those certified letters. Then, Paige. You're dead to us. I stared at those words and felt less than I expected. Samuel's paralegal called just before noon. The judge granted a temporary preservation order. What does that mean? It means Gerald can't destroy, transfer, or hide relevant financial records without risking sanctions. Also, she hesitated, Whitaker Properties Bank has been notified. Elena sank into a chair. I whispered, The lake house? Potentially traceable, the paralegal said. We'll know more after subpoenas. By sunset, the internet had flipped. Paige deleted her post. Marianne's comment vanished. Gerald's company page turned off reviews. But the real blow came at 6:44 p.m. An unknown number texted me a photo. It was a page from a ledger. Handwritten. Years of entries. Kendall stipend, received. Kendall stipend, transferred. Kendall medical allotment, retained. At the bottom was Marianne's signature. Then another text. There are boxes in the storage unit on Miller Road. Unit 18. Your name is on some of them. They told us never to mention it. I replied, Who is this? The answer came 1 minute later. Aunt Carol. Gerald's sister. I'm sorry I stayed quiet. Elena read over my shoulder. Storage unit? I called Samuel. He listened, then said, Do not go alone. Do not warn them. I'll meet you there with a process server and a videographer. Be here at 9:10 p.m., under flickering fluorescent lights at Miller Road Storage. Samuel cut the seal on Unit 18 with the manager watching. Inside were furniture tarps, old tax boxes, pages, childhood trophies, BR, and 6 plastic bins labeled Kendall. My hands shook as I opened the first one. Baby clothes. A stuffed dog. Stacks of letters, all unopened. And on top, a small VHS tape with a peeling label written in blue ink, beer for Kendall, when she comes home. Elena made a sound like her heart had broken all over again. Samuel lifted a folder from the second bin and went still. What? I asked. He looked at me, then at Elena. This isn't just financial fraud, he said. He turned the folder around. At the top was a document titled BR Petition to Adopt Minor Child. And beneath Consenting Parent, someone had signed Elena's name. Elena stared at it, white-faced. That's not my signature, she whispered. Elena's forged signature became the first domino. Samuel photographed the adoption petition, sealed the storage unit, and called a forensic document examiner before we even left the parking lot. I sat in his car with the VHS tape in my lap, staring at the label until the words blurred. For Kendall, when she comes home. Elena kept whispering, I made that. I made that for you. We watched it that night in Samuel's conference room on an old combo TV his paralegal found in storage. Then he stopped fighting and started negotiating. Marianne tried to blame everything on him until Samuel produced the ledger with her signature on every stipend transfer. Paige sent me one message after the preservation order hit the lake house. Did you have to ruin my life too? I typed 3 different replies. Then I deleted them all. Because the truth was, I hadn't ruined her life. I had only stopped paying for it without knowing. 4 months after my birthday, Gerald pleaded guilty to theft by deception and falsification. Marianne took a lesser plea for receiving stolen funds and signing false accountings. They avoided prison because white-collar remorse apparently has better lawyers, but they lost the lake house, liquidated investments, and paid restitution into a court-controlled trust in my original name. Kendall Rose Alvarez. Seeing it on the paperwork hurt at first. Not because I hated it. Because I recognized it. The adoption itself wasn't erased overnight. Samuel warned me identity law was messy, and no judge could hand me back the childhood I'd missed. But the court amended my records to acknowledge the fraud, restored access to my original birth documents, and gave me the choice to change my legal name. I chose Kendall Rose Calder Alvarez. Not because paperwork makes a family. Because for once, paperwork told the truth. A year after that night, I turned 22 in Elena's kitchen. No steakhouse. No trust folder. No gold writing cut apart by a knife. Just a homemade cake that leaned slightly to the left, a table crowded with Elena, Samuel and his wife, Aunt Carol, 2 cousins who had my eyes, and a beagle named Milo who kept trying to steal frosting. Elena lit 1 candle. Oh, only 1? I asked. She smiled through tears. For the first birthday we get to keep. After dinner, she brought out the stuffed dog from the storage bin. Its fur was worn flat in places. 1 ear had been sewn back on with blue thread. I saved it because I thought. She stopped and tried again. I thought if you came home you'd need something that remembered you. I held it against my chest. For so long, I thought love was something I had to earn by being quiet. By being useful. By not asking where I came from. Marianne had called me a check because that was all she could see. But Elena looked at me like I was every prayer she had ever refused to bury. Later, after everyone left, we sat on the back steps under a soft spring rain. She rested her head on my shoulder carefully, like she still didn't want to ask too much. I reached for her hand first. And in the window behind us, reflected in the dark glass, I saw us both. A mother and daughter stitched back together. Not perfectly, not painlessly, but truly. The candle was still burning on the kitchen table. This time, nobody cut through my name. If my story started with, "You were a check, not a daughter," let it end with this: I was never their check. I was always someone's child. If this story stayed with you, tell me in the comments what you would have done in my place. And if you want more stories like this, please like the video and subscribe to the channel.